local law. Stories of his adventures, his conquests, and his encounters with 400 women had made him a legendary figure, a mix of admiration and cautionary tale. Okonkwo was a striking figure, tall and powerfully built, with a deep, resonant voice that commanded attention whenever he spoke. He had an air about him that spoke of old money and older ancestry, a direct descendant of warriors and kings. His home was a large compound on the edge of the town, near the dense forest that whispered secrets of the ancient times. The story begins on a hot afternoon, with the sun hanging heavy in the sky, relentless in its heat. Okonkwo sat under the shade of a giant ube tree, his mind racing with thoughts as he carved patterns onto a piece of ivory. His reputation as a lover of many women was no secret, but what many did not know was the loneliness that gnawed at his heart. Each encounter left him more hollow than the last, a series of fleeting moments that left no lasting warmth. It was then that a stranger approached, a young man from the north, tall and clad in a flowing babanraiga. His presence was unusual in Umuahia, where the faces were familiar and the stories of each family were known to all. Okonkwo, the great lion of Umuahia, the stranger began, his voice laced with a hint of mockery, I have heard of your deeds, your conquests that span the breadth of our great land. They say you have known the love of 400 women. Is this the life of a true man? Of a true Igbo warrior? Okonkwo's eyes narrowed, studying the young man before him. And who are you to question my life's choices? He replied, his voice steady, betraying no emotion. My name is Chike, the stranger replied, and I come from the ancient city of Kano, where men are measured not by the pleasures they pursue, but by the legacy they leave behind. A murmur ran through the gathering crowd. Chike's words were bold, a challenge not just to Okonkwo's lifestyle, but to his very identity. I challenge you, Okonkwo, Chike continued, his eyes locked on those of his opponent. I challenge you to a series of contests. Strength, wit, and spirit. Let us see who the true warrior is. The proposal was audacious. To refuse would be a sign of cowardice, something Okonkwo could never allow to stain his reputation. He accepted, setting in motion a series of events that would unravel the tightly woven threads of his life. The first challenge was one of strength. It took place in the village square, with hundreds of spectators gathered to witness the contest. The air was thick with tension and excitement, drums beating a furious rhythm as the two men prepared to wrestle, the traditional way of settling disputes. Chike proved to be a formidable opponent. Young and agile, he moved with a speed that belied his size. The match was intense, each man pushing his physical limits, the ground beneath them scuffed and muddy from their struggle. In the end, Okonkwo won, but the victory was hard-earned. He felt a spark of respect for Chike, something he had not felt for another man in many years. The next challenge was one of wit. They were to face off in a debate before the elders, arguing on the role of tradition in the modern Igbo society. Chike spoke eloquently of the need for progress, for embracing new ways while respecting the old. Okonkwo, with his deep knowledge of the customs and legends, argued for the sanctity of tradition, the very foundation upon which their society was built. The debate was heated, with passionate speeches that stirred the hearts of all who listened. This time, it was Chike who was declared the winner, his vision for a balanced approach to change resonating more with the elders. The final challenge would be one of spirit, to be held at the sacred grove at midnight. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple, the villagers of Umuahia gathered once more. This time, their steps took them beyond the confines of the village to the sacred grove, a place of ancient power, where the spirits of ancestors mingled with the living, and the air hummed with unseen energy. The grove was a circle of towering trees, their branches woven into a thick canopy that barely let moonlight through. In the center stood a large, flat stone, worn smooth by centuries of ritual use. This was where Okonkwo and Chike would face their final challenge, a test not just of physical strength or mental acuity, but of spiritual depth. Elder Uzodinma, the oldest and most revered in the village, stepped forward. His voice was low, carrying through the grove with authority born of years spent mediating between the earthly and the divine. Tonight, he began, you have come to prove not just to each other, but to the ancestors themselves, who among you holds the true spirit of the Igbo warrior. This challenge will not be won by force or by clever words, but by purity of heart and clarity of purpose. Okonkwo and Chike nodded, their expression solemn. Each knew that the coming test was unlike any they had faced before. Elder Uzodimma continued, "You will each enter the forest alone. With nothing but a white cloth tied around your waist, you must seek out the aku tree, the rarest in these woods, known for its healing properties. From this tree, you must each bring back a leaf, but be warned, the path is treacherous, and the forest is full of spirits that will test your truth." As the elder spoke, a chill wind swept through the grove, rustling the leaves and causing more than a few villagers to shudder. Okonkwo felt a pang of unease. His life had been one of tangible challenges, ones that could be met with strength and aggression. This, however, was a realm he seldom frequented, and the thought of facing the unknown tugged at his resolve. Chike, on the other hand, stood quietly confident, his eyes reflecting a calm that bordered on the mystical. Raised by a father who was both a hunter and a healer, he had spent his youth in the camp to reflect on the heartbreaks, the empty triumphs, the cold dawns. With each step, his usual confidence waned, replaced by introspection. Was this how he was meant to end his days, haunted by the shadows of past misdeeds? Meanwhile, Chike moved with a lightness that belied his nervous anticipation. He whispered to the spirits in a soft, respectful tone, asking for their blessing and guidance. His path, too, was fraught with challenges. Phantom whispers tugged at his fears, shadows danced at the corner of his vision, yet he pressed on, his heart clear with the purity of his intent. The night wore on, with both men deep in their respective quest, battling not just the physical distance but the landscape of their own spirits. As the moon reached its zenith, each man encountered what they least expected. In the dense, moonlit thicket, Okonkwo's journey brought him to a clearing where the air felt thick and still. The moonlight barely penetrated the canopy above, yet in the center of this natural amphitheater stood an ancient aku tree, its bark shimmering with a silvery glow. This was what he had been searching for, yet the sight of it did not bring him relief but a deep, unnerving dread. As he approached the tree, figures began to materialize around him, shapes formed from mist and shadows, whispering voices that echoed the doubts and fears he had tried so long to bury. "Okonkwo," they whispered, "warrior, lover, are you truly a man of worth?" Each question stabbed at his ego, his self-perception, forcing him to confront his past actions and their consequences. With trembling hands, Okonkwo reached for a leaf from the aku tree, his fingers brushing against the smooth, cool surface. As he plucked it, a sharp pain seared through his heart, as though the tree itself were extracting a toll for the privilege of taking part of its essence. Meanwhile, Chike's path had led him to a different part of the forest, one where the trees were dense, their branches tangled as if holding secrets between them. The night was alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures, and the air was thick with the scent of jasmine and wild honey. He too eventually came upon his own aku tree, standing solemn and majestic in a small dell lit by the soft glow of fireflies. As he approached, the air around him warmed, and the spirits of the forest emerged not as tormentors but as old friends, guiding him gently forward. "Chike," they hummed, "seeker of truth, are you ready to see the heart of the world?" Unlike Okonkwo, Chike felt a sense of coming home, a reconciliation of his inner conflicts with the outer world he strove to understand. He reached out and gently took a leaf from the aku tree. The tree seemed to release it willingly into his hand, and a feeling of peace flooded through him, a deep, resonating calm that assured him of his path. Both men, having acquired their respective leaves, made their way back to the grove. The journey back was quieter, introspective. Okonkwo walked slowly, each step heavy with the weight of his revelations. He had seen into the depths of his soul and found it wanting, lacking the cohesion of a truly fulfilled life. Chike, on the other hand, walked with a serene confidence, the leaf in his hand a symbol of his balanced spirit and clear purpose. He understood now more than ever that his life's mission was to bridge the old ways with the new, to bring healing where there was hurt, and understanding where there was ignorance. As the first light of dawn tinged the sky with pale blue, both men emerged from the forest. The villagers, who had waited all night, saw immediately the change in them. Okonkwo's eyes, once fiery and commanding, now held a depth of sadness and understanding. Chike's frame seemed to radiate a subtle strength, his gaze serene and wise. Elder Uzodinma stepped forward, his eyes moving from one man to the other. He took the leaves they offered and held them up for all to see. These leaves, he declared, are not merely tokens of success in a challenge, they are symbols of the journeys these men have undergone this night. Each leaf tells a story not just of a quest in the forest, but of a journey of the soul. Turning to Okonkwo, he said, "You have faced your own spirit, and you have seen its flaws. The path to healing is painful, but it is open to you now." To Chike, he nodded with respect, "And you, Chike, have embraced your spirit's quest with humility and courage. You bring honor to your ancestors and hope to your people." The villagers listened, moved by the transformation of both men, their hearts stirred by the profound journeys undertaken in the darkness of the forest. As the sun rose fully above the horizon, casting a golden glow over the grove, a new chapter was ready to begin for Okonkwo, Chike, and the village of Umuahia. A chapter where old wounds could heal, new understanding could flourish, and the true essence of strength and wisdom could guide them forward. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the village of Umuahia as the community buzzed with the news of Okonkwo and Chike's spiritual odyssey. The challenge at the sacred grove was more than a spectacle, it was a transformative experience that touched every heart and stirred whispers of change throughout the village. As days passed, Okonkwo found himself withdrawing from the camaraderie of his numerous conquests, seeking solace in the solitude of the ube tree where the challenge had first been issued. The man who had once been the center of every gathering now watched them from the fringes, his thoughts as tangled as the vines in the sacred grove. One morning, under the heavy heat of the noon sun, a group of elders approached Okonkwo. They were led by Elder Uzodinma, who carried the same solemn expression as on the night of the challenge. "Okonkwo, son of the soil," Uzodinma began, "your journey through the night has sparked a desire for renewal not just within you, but within the heart of Umuahia. We seek your strength once more, not in conquest but in leadership. Our village faces threats from beyond our borders, and we need a leader who has faced his own shadows to help us face ours." Okonkwo looked up, the weight of the elder's request settling upon him. Here was a chance to redefine his legacy, to turn his personal revelations into communal strength. He nodded slowly, accepting the responsibility not as a warrior of old but as a protector born anew from the trials of spirit. Meanwhile, Chike, aware of the village's shifting dynamics, began to establish a council of youths, aiming to integrate modern methods with the traditional wisdom of Umuahia. His nights in the forest had taught him the value of balance, and he now sought to bring that balance into the daily lives of his people. Under his guidance, the youth started projects that ranged from improving agricultural practices to establishing trade with nearby communities, enhancing the village's economy and its resilience. As Okonkwo and Chike set about their tasks, a new threat loomed on the horizon. A neighboring village, envious of Umuahia's prosperity and swayed by the rumors of its internal transformations, began to muster warriors for a raid. Their leader, a fierce and ambitious warrior named Ezudu, had heard of Okonkwo's change of heart and perceived it as a weakening of Umuahia's defenses. Word of Ezudu's intentions reached Okonkwo one evening as he sat contemplating by the ube tree. The news reignited the fire of his warrior spirit, but this time it was tempered by the wisdom of his journey. He resolved to meet force with strategy, bravado with wisdom. Gathering the village's warriors, Okonkwo shared his plan. "We will not meet Ezudu with spears alone but with minds prepared for every possible move. We stand not just for Umuahia, but for what Umuahia is becoming." The confrontation was set at the break of dawn at the old boundaries of Umuahia's lands. As the first light filtered through the trees, both groups met in a tense, silent standoff. Okonkwo stepped forward, his presence commanding as ever, but his words were of peace. "Ezudu, we have both been warriors, and we know the cost of war. Let us instead talk and find a path to mutual prosperity," Okonkwo proposed, his voice resonant with the strength of his convictions. Ezudu, taken aback by Okonkwo's demeanor, hesitated. His warriors, hungry for battle, shifted restlessly behind him. The tension was palpable, a drawn bowstring in the quiet morning air. It was then that Chike and his council of youth appeared, bringing with them evidence of Umuahia's prosperity, baskets of yam, palm oil, and crafts. "See the wealth that peace has brought us," Chike called out, his words reaching across the divide. "Let us share this wealth, not spill blood over it. Torn between the lust for battle and the promise of prosperity, Ezudu's resolve wavered. The elders of his own village, seeing the bounty Umuahia offered, urged him to consider the peaceful proposal. After a long, tension-filled pause, Ezudu lowered his weapon, signaling his warriors to do the same. "We will talk," he declared grudgingly, and what could have been a bloody conflict turned instead to negotiations that lasted well into the day. The agreement reached promised joint ventures between the villages, exchanges of goods, and intermarriage ties to strengthen bonds and ensure lasting peace. As the former adversaries departed from the meeting place, there was a sense of hope and renewal. In the days that followed, Okonkwo and Chike's leadership continued to inspire Umuahia. Their tale, born of a challenge that tested their spirits, became a legend not of conquest but of transformation and wisdom, a story that would be told in Umuahia for generations to come. With peace tentatively established and the threat of violence quelled, Umuahia began to thrive under Okonkwo and Chike's stewardship. The village became a beacon of progress and stability, but as with all tales of success, new challenges inevitably arose. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of gold and crimson, a lone traveler approached the village. He was a merchant named Chike, known for his travels across the great rivers and distant lands of the east, and he brought with him tales of cities so vast and full of wonders that they would make Umuahia seem like a mere speck in comparison. Chike was welcomed warmly, and at a feast in his honor, he shared stories of his travels and the many peoples he had encountered. His words filled the villagers with awe and a budding curiosity about the world beyond their borders. However, Chike also brought news of a less welcome nature, a powerful chieftain from the north, known for his ruthless ambition to expand his territory, had heard of Umuahia's prosperity and was intrigued not just by its wealth but by its strategic location. This news cast a shadow over the gathering, and once the festivities ended, Okonkwo and Chike met with the village elders to discuss this new threat. It was clear that while they had avoided war with Ezudu, a potentially greater conflict loomed on the horizon. Okonkwo, still feeling the weight of his spiritual journey and the recent victory through diplomacy, suggested they send envoys to the northern chieftain to negotiate and show the benefits of peace. Chike, however, proposed that they also prepare for the worst by strengthening their defenses and training the youth in both combat and strategy. The elders agreed with both approaches, and plans were set into motion. In the weeks that followed, Umuahia buzzed with activity. Envoys were sent northward, carrying gifts and messages of friendship, while Chike organized training camps for the village youths, blending the old ways of combat with new strategies that could help them protect their home. As these preparations were underway, the village's women, led by Okonkwo's estranged wife Nkechi, who had returned to the village inspired by the changes she had witnessed, began to form collectives to support the efforts. They cultivated larger crops, weaved finer cloths, and gathered herbs known for their healing properties. Nkechi, using knowledge gained during her time away, initiated trade deals with nearby villages to secure necessary resources, ensuring that Umuahia would not face the coming storm in isolation. Months passed, and the northern chieftain, intrigued by the envoy's tales of Umuahia's advancements and the spirit of its people, decided to visit the village himself. His arrival was nothing short of regal, with a procession of warriors, shamans, and servants that stretched back as far as the eye could see. Okonkwo and Chike welcomed him at the village boundary, the same spot where bloodshed had nearly broken out months before. The chieftain, a towering figure named Irobi, was impressed by the greeting, a mixture of traditional respect and a clear display of strength. Over several days, Irobi was shown the advancement of Umuahia, from their agricultural innovations to the training camps for the youth. He witnessed the unity and resolve of the people, and the evident prosperity that peace had brought them. The nights were filled with feast and storytelling, where Okeke's tales paled in comparison to the living legend of Umuahia's transformation. On the final night of his visit, as a cool breeze swept through the village square adorned with lanterns and filled with music, Irobi stood to speak, his voice carrying over the gathered crowd. "I came here on a mission of conquest," he admitted, "but I live with a mission of partnership. Your strength is not just in your warriors but in your unity and your spirit. Let us not be adversaries. Umuahia has much to teach us, and I hope we have much to share in return." The agreement that followed promised not just peace but mutual development between the territories. Umuahia would share its agricultural techniques and trade routes, while Nairobi's people would provide security and share their knowledge of mining and metalwork. As Nairobi's procession left, the air in Umuahia was thick with a sense of victory, a victory not won through war, but through the strength of community and the power of diplomacy. Okonkwo and Chike, once again at the heart of the village's success, looked on as their people celebrated. They knew challenges would come again, but they also knew that Umuahia was ready to face whatever the future held. As the village of Umuahia thrived under the new alliances and continued prosperity, Okonkwo found himself facing consequences from a past he thought he had left behind. While he had transformed from a brash warrior to a revered leader, the shadows of his earlier actions lingered, waiting to emerge into the light. As weeks turned into months since the northern chieftain's visit, Okonkwo began to notice familiar faces returning to the village, faces of women he had once known intimately. Each return brought news that tightened the knot in Okonkwo's stomach. Many of these women were not alone. They came with children with eyes and mannerisms eerily reminiscent of his own. The first to approach him was Adebi. She had been a beauty of her village, and Okonkwo had wooed her with promises as lush as the Umuahia forest. Now, standing before him was a boy of about 7, his jaw set with a determination that mirrored Okonkwo's own. Adebi's voice was calm but carried a sharp undertone. "This is Obina," she said. "Your son." Okonkwo's heart sank as he looked into Obina's eyes. The boy was his, no doubt, and the realization filled him with a mix of dread and a burning sense of responsibility. Before he could respond, more women came forward, each story echoing Adebi's. Some children were younger, others older, but all bore features of the Umuahia lion. The village, once buzzing with the excitement of progress, now whispered with rumors and sideways glances towards Okonkwo. The respect he had worked so hard to build was at risk of crumbling under the weight of his past indiscretions. Feeling the pressing need to address the situation, Okonkwo called for a meeting with the elders and the women who had come forward. Under the ancient Iroko tree, they gathered, a mix of curious, worried, and angry faces looking towards him for answers. Okonkwo stood before them, the weight of his past visibly bearing down on him. He spoke with a humility that was new to many who knew him only as a leader. "I am here not just to listen but to make right what can be made right. I have wronged many, and for that, I am deeply sorry. I am ready to take responsibility and provide for these children, my children, and support you as best I can." The reactions were mixed. Some women, like Adebi, were placated by his willingness to acknowledge his responsibilities. Others, bearing deeper wounds, found it harder to accept his words at face value. Discussions ensued, led by the elders, on how to integrate these children into the fabric of Umuahia without social stigma, and how to ensure their upbringing and education. Okonkwo agreed to dedicate a portion of his wealth to the children's upbringing, including the establishment of a fund that would ensure their education and health care. Moreover, he proposed the creation of a council, made up of mothers, to oversee these efforts, ensuring that the children and their mothers had a voice in their futures. As the meeting drew to a close, Okonkwo felt a slight easing of the tension that had gripped him. The road ahead would be challenging, and his actions would forever be marked by his past, but he was determined to face this new chapter with openness and integrity. However, the seeds of his past deeds were planted deep, and Kama was not through with Okonkwo. The village's prosperity had attracted not only political allies but also those who sought to exploit Umuahia's wealth. Among these were individuals who saw Okonkwo's vulnerable position as an opportunity. One evening, as the village celebrated the harvest, a band of mercenaries, hired by a disgraced rival chieftain seeking to destabilize Umuahia, attacked. They had heard of the turmoil caused by Okonkwo's personal revelations and saw it as the perfect moment to strike. The attack was fierce, and for the first time since his transformation, Okonkwo fought not just for his legacy but for the very survival of his family, both old and new. With Chike at his side, he rallied the villagers, who fought with the courage of those protecting their home and their future. In the heat of battle, Okonkwo's past and present collided dramatically. His actions as a younger man had set this path, but his actions now would define his future. With every decision to protect, support, and unite, he fought not just with the strength of a warrior but with the heart of a father and leader. As dawn broke over a battered but unbowed Umuahia, Okonkwo looked over the village, its fields golden with the morning light, its people strong and resilient. The battle had been won, but the war for his redemption was just beginning. He knew then that each day would be a step towards atonement, each action a way to mend the fabric of his community and his soul. Okonkwo woke to the sound of hushed voices outside his hut. The morning was still cloaked in a soft grey, the sun not yet bold enough to peek over Umuahia's horizon. He sat up, the remnants of the previous night's conflict weighing heavy on his spirit. The community had stood together, united against the mercenaries, but the cost had been steep, both in spirit and in the trust that had been shaken by the revelations of his past. As he emerged from his hut, Okonkwo was met by Chike, whose usual calm demeanor was furrowed with concern. "The attack has left the village on edge," Chike explained. "People are frightened, not just of external threats but of the instability within. Your past has given our enemies a weapon, Okonkwo. We need to strengthen our resolve and our defenses." Okonkwo nodded, understanding the gravity of Chike's words. "Gather the council," he said. "It's time we devise a plan that secures our future and reaffirms our unity." The council met under the Iroko tree, their faces set in lines of determination. Okonkwo addressed them first. "Last night, we defended our home with courage. Now, we must show that same courage in securing our future. I propose a twofold strategy: fortify our defenses and heal our internal divisions. My past has brought us to this precarious edge, and for that, I am deeply sorry. I am committed to making amends, and I ask for your support in these efforts." The council agreed, and plans were made to construct stronger fortifications around the village and establish a regular guard rotation. Okonkwo, determined to lead by example, volunteered to train the new guards himself. Meanwhile, the women of Umuahia, led by Nkechi, Okonkwo's estranged wife, took it upon themselves to foster a renewed sense of community. Nkechi organized gatherings where women could speak openly about their fears and hopes for the village's future. "We must weave our community back together," she declared, her voice resonant with the strength of her conviction. As weeks turned into months, Umuahia slowly regained its footing. The fortifications were strengthened, and the villagers trained in defense. Okonkwo spent his days with the guards, teaching them not only how to fight but how to watch for the signs of trouble both within and without. In the evenings, he dedicated his time to the children, his own and those of the village. He told them stories of Umuahia's past, of its heroes and the lessons of their lives. Through these stories, he taught them the values of courage, integrity, and unity. One day, as Okonkwo was teaching a group of children near the river, a young girl named Amora approached him with a question. "Why do we tell stories of the past?" she asked innocently. Okonkwo smiled, seeing in her a budding curiosity that reminded him of his younger self. "We tell these stories, Amora, to learn from them," he explained. "They remind us of where we've come from and guide us on where we need to go." Amora nodded thoughtfully, her young mind pondering the weight of history. Okonkwo's heart swelled with hope, seeing the next generation embrace the lessons that had come at such a high cost. As the dry season approached, bringing with it the winds of change, Umuahia's fortifications were put to the test. A band of traders from the north came to Umuahia, not with weapons but with goods to trade and stories to share. They spoke of changes in the lands beyond Umuahia, of shifts in power and alliances that could affect them all. Okonkwo welcomed them with cautious hospitality, mindful of the past but optimistic about the potential for new partnerships. The traders were impressed with Umuahia's resilience and the vibrancy of its community. They left with promises to return, bearing not just goods but potential alliances. The news of the successful trade spread through Umuahia like a fresh breeze, lifting the spirits of the villagers. They began to see the fruits of their labor, the benefits of unity and the strength of a community healed from within. Okonkwo stood at the edge of the village, watching the sunset paint the sky with hues of orange and purple. He thought about the journey he had embarked upon, from a man feared for his past to one respected for his efforts to mend his ways. It had not been easy, and the road ahead promised its own challenges, but he felt ready to meet them. As night fell over Umuahia, the stars blinked into existence, each one a reminder of the light that can emerge from the darkest of times. Okonkwo turned back toward the village, his heart steady, his resolve unbreakable, ready to face whatever the future held. For himself, for his family, and for Umuahia. Months passed, and with each one, the unity within Umuahia seemed to deepen. Okonkwo's efforts at reconciliation and his active leadership in both defense and education fostered a renewed sense of trust and respect among the villagers. His legacy, once marred by tales of wantonness and irresponsibility, began to be rewritten in the eyes of his people. However, the shadows of his past were not entirely dispelled. One cool evening, as the village prepared for the upcoming New Yam festival, a time of joy and thanksgiving, Okonkwo received word that one of the women who had come forward months ago, a young mother named Ekutisi, was gravely ill. Her child, a bright and lively boy of 3, was Okonkwo's son, though few knew of this. Feeling a personal responsibility for their well-being, Okonkwo visited their home, a small but tidy hut on the edge of the village. Ekutisi was lying on a mat, her features drawn and pale. As Okonkwo entered, her eyes lit with a mix of surprise and relief. "Okonkwo," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread. "I did not expect you to come." Okonkwo knelt beside her, his heart heavy with regret. "I am here now, Ekutisi. Tell me what ails you, and I will do whatever I can to help." Ekutisi's illness, it turned out, was beyond the help of the village healer. She needed medicine that could only be found in the distant city beyond the hills, a journey perilous and costly. Okonkwo did not hesitate, he arranged for the medicine to be fetched, his resolve firm. During the days that followed, as they awaited the medicine's arrival, Okonkwo took the boy, Chinido, under his wing, caring for him as Ekutisi's strength waned. The villagers watched, their respect for Okonkwo growing as they witnessed his commitment to his responsibilities, no longer the man of legend but a leader of heartfelt conviction. When the medicine finally arrived, it was almost too late. Ekutisi was frail, barely clinging to life. But slowly, with care and the right treatment, her health began to improve. The relief that swept through Okonkwo was immense, not only because of Ekutisi's recovery but also because of the bond he had formed with Chinido, a boy who had his eyes and his once indomitable spirit. With Ekutisi on the mend, the village celebrated the New Yam festival with even greater fervor, giving thanks for the harvest, for health, and for unity. Okonkwo, standing amidst his people, felt a deep sense of peace and belonging. But peace is often a precursor to storm, and in Umuahia's case, the storm came in the form of a long-standing rival tribe from the west, emboldened by rumors of Umuahia's past troubles and eager to challenge its strength. They sent a message to Okonkwo, a challenge to meet on the field of battle or face invasion. The news started a fierce debate among the council. Some argued for a show of strength to discourage further threats, while others feared that battle would only lead to unnecessary bloodshed and weaken the village further. Okonkwo listened, his mind racing with the weight of decision. That night, under the vast, starlit sky, Okonkwo consulted with Chike, seeking his counsel. "We have worked hard to build peace within and around us," Chike advised. "Let us not be quick to shed blood. Perhaps there is another way to resolve this without war." Inspired by Chike's words, Okonkwo proposed a bold plan. Instead of meeting the rival tribe's challenge with force, he would meet it with a display of Umuahia's unity and prosperity. He invited their leaders to attend the closing ceremony of the New Yam festival, to see the strength of Umuahia not in its warriors but in its people and their achievements. The rival tribe's leaders, curious and somewhat skeptical, accepted the invitation. When they arrived, they were greeted not with hostility but with hospitality. They were shown Umuahia's thriving farms, its bustling marketplace, and its school, where children like Chinido learned not just to read and write but to honor their culture and history. The rival leaders were impressed, their perceptions of Umuahia transformed by what they witnessed. The discussions that followed, held under the Iroko tree, were marked by a willingness to find common ground. The rivalry that had threatened to bloom into war instead blossomed into a budding alliance, with promises of trade and mutual support. As the delegation departed, a sense of triumph filled the air. Okonkwo had gambled on peace and won. But more than that, he had solidified his place as a leader not only respected for his might but revered for his wisdom and his heart. Under the now tranquil sky, Okonkwo looked over his village, a tapestry of lives woven together by shared struggles and hopes. He knew challenges lay ahead, but he faced them with a renewed spirit, supported by his people and strengthened by the lessons of his past. As the cool night drew its blanket over Umuahia, Okonkwo felt the promise of tomorrow pulse through the village, a symphony of quiet whispers and dreams, all singing of a future filled with hope. As the new alliances began to take shape, Okonkwo was mindful of the delicate balance he had worked so hard to achieve. The burgeoning relationship with the once rival tribe brought not only prospects of trade but also an exchange of cultures and ideas. Umuahia, once isolated by its troubles and Okonkwo's past deeds, was opening up, evolving into a hub of regional cooperation. However, as the village prospered, the challenges shifted from external threats to internal dynamics. The influx of new ideas and customs stirred a mixture of excitement and apprehension among the villagers. Some embraced the changes, seeing them as opportunities for growth and innovation, while others clung to tradition, fearing that their way of life might be diluted. Recognizing the undercurrents of discontent, Okonkwo convened a series of community meetings. He invited speakers from among the villagers and the new allies to discuss the benefits of embracing change while respecting tradition. These dialogues were heated yet fruitful, providing a platform for everyone to voice their concerns and suggestions. During one such meeting, an elder from the allied tribe shared stories of their own struggles with maintaining cultural integrity while engaging with neighboring communities. His words resonated with many in Umuahia, helping to ease the tension and foster a deeper understanding of the need for balance. Meanwhile, Okonkwo continued to nurture his personal bonds. His relationship with his children, especially Chinedu, became a source of joy and personal redemption. He saw in Chinedu a reflection of the man he had become rather than the man he once was. Together with Ekutisi, who had fully recovered and was now an active member of the Women's Council, they crafted a small but loving family unit within the larger community. Ekutisi, once quiet and reserved, blossomed into a leader in her own right. She initiated projects to integrate the knowledge and techniques from their new allies into Umuahia's agricultural practices. Her initiatives not only increased crop yields but also demonstrated the tangible benefits of their newfound alliances. As the seasons changed, Umuahia hosted its first joint cultural festival with their allies. It was a vibrant affair, with dance, music, and food that blended the traditions of both communities. Okonkwo and Ekutisi watched proudly as Chinedu participated in a dance troupe that included children from both villages. The sight of their son, laughing and dancing with friends from both tribes, was a poignant reminder of how far they had all come. The festival was also a moment for Okonkwo to reflect on his journey. He walked among the people he now considered not just his subjects but his friends and family. His conversations were filled with laughter and shared memories, a stark contrast to the days when his presence evoked fear and suspicion. However, the harmony was disrupted when a dispute broke out at the festival over a trade agreement. A misunderstanding between a Umuahia trader and a merchant from the allied tribe threatened to escalate into a larger conflict. Okonkwo was quick to intervene, calling upon both parties to discuss the issue openly rather than allowing resentment to fester. The discussion was tense, with accusations and grievances aired publicly. Okonkwo listened patiently, then spoke with a calm authority that had come to define his leadership. We have all worked too hard to build these bridges only to tear them down over misunderstandings. Let us find a way to resolve this that strengthens our bond, not weakens it. His words reminded everyone of the stakes involved. After hours of negotiation, a compromise was reached that satisfied both parties, and the festival continued. This incident underscored the ongoing need for careful management of the new relationships. It also highlighted Okonkwo's role not just as a leader but as a mediator and a unifier. His ability to navigate these complex dynamics reassured the community that they were in capable hands. As the festival drew to a close, Okonkwo stood beside Chike, watching the fading bonfires. "We have built something remarkable here," Chike remarked, a note of pride in his voice. "Yes," Okonkwo agreed, his eyes on the embers. "And we must continue to nurture it, protect it, and let it grow. For the sake of all our children, like Chinedu, who deserve a world where peace and prosperity reign over conflict and strife." With the stars twinkling above, mirroring the fading fires below, Okonkwo felt a profound connection to his ancestors, to the land, and to the people he served. He knew the road ahead would have its challenges, but he was ready to meet them with the same courage and integrity that had brought him this far. In the quiet of the night, he committed himself anew to the future of Umuahia, a future he believed was brighter than ever. As the dry season tapered into a milder, fertile rainy season, Umuahia flourished under the leadership of Okonkwo and the council. Yet, the idyllic peace was occasionally marred by growing pains, as the integration of new customs and relationships tested the resilience and adaptability of the villagers. The rains brought not only life to the land but also visitors from distant lands. A delegation from a coastal community arrived in Umuahia with tales of the sea and exotic goods that piqued the curiosity of the villagers. Their leader, a seasoned navigator named Ajoni, offered Okonkwo a partnership in trade routes that could expand Umuahia's reach to the coastal markets. Okonkwo, ever cautious but intrigued by the prospect of enhancing Umuahia's prosperity, convened a meeting with the elders and the Trade Council to discuss the proposition. The discussions were intense, with some elders voicing concerns about the dangers of overextending and losing sight of traditional values. However, the potential for economic growth and the exchange of cultural wealth were compelling arguments that eventually swayed the council's decision. With the approval of the elders, Okonkwo agreed to a trial trade expedition. Preparations began, with Chike overseeing the logistics and Ekutesi coordinating the selection of goods and crafts that showcased Umuahia's finest products. As the departure day approached, Okonkwo felt a familiar stir of anticipation and anxiety. He had not ventured beyond the familiar territories in many years, and the prospect of sailing to new lands was both exhilarating and daunting. The morning of departure dawned clear and bright. The villagers gathered to see off Okonkwo and the trade delegation, their spirits high with hopes for success. Chinedu clung to Okonkwo's leg, his young face a mix of pride and worry. Okonkwo knelt and embraced his son, whispering assurances of his return and the stories he would bring back. The journey to the coast was uneventful, but as they sailed along the shoreline, the vastness of the ocean struck Okonkwo with a profound sense of humility. The sea was a different beast, untamed and unpredictable. Ajoni, sensing Okonkwo's apprehension, shared tales of the sea, each story a lesson in respect and understanding of nature's power. Upon reaching the coastal city, Okonkwo was struck by the bustling markets and the diversity of peoples and goods. The air was thick with the scent of salt and spices, and the sound of different languages filled the air like a cacophonous symphony. The Umuahia delegation drew curious looks, their inland attire and goods a novelty to the coastal folk. The first days of trade were challenging as cultural and language barriers presented obstacles. However, Okonkwo's honest demeanor and Ajoni's guidance gradually won them several favorable deals. The Umuahia crafts, especially the intricately woven cloths and carved statuettes, were particularly popular, fetching good prices and promises of future orders. As the delegation prepared to return, Okonkwo felt a surge of pride and accomplishment. They had ventured into unknown territory and not only survived but thrived. This success, he realized, was a testament to the unity and strength of Umuahia's people and their ability to adapt and embrace new opportunities. Upon their return, the village celebrated their success with a feast that lasted well into the night. Okonkwo presented the council with the profits from the expedition, and plans were made to establish a permanent trade route with the coastal cities. However, the success of the coastal trade brought new challenges. Other inland tribes, envious of Umuahia's prosperity, began to pose threats, hoping to undermine the trade routes or demand tributes. Okonkwo realized that with prosperity came the need for enhanced security and diplomacy. He tasked Chike with strengthening the village's defenses and negotiating alliances with neighboring tribes. Ekutesi took on the role of cultural ambassador, fostering relations through exchanges of art and culture that showcased Umuahia's commitment to peace and mutual prosperity. The following months were a whirlwind of activity. As Umuahia's influence grew, so did the complexities of managing its affairs. Okonkwo felt the weight of leadership more acutely than ever, his days filled with decisions that affected not just his village but the entire region. In the midst of these challenges, Okonkwo's personal life flourished. His relationship with Ekutesi deepened, and together with Chinedu, they became a symbol of the village's unity and strength. Okonkwo's other children, those he had fathered in his younger days, also began to take on roles within the community, each contributing in their way to Umuahia's growth. As Umuahia prepared for the annual harvest festival, Okonkwo reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the strife and conflict of his past to the thriving community that stood testament to the power of redemption and the strength of unity, Umuahia was a beacon of hope. As he watched the sunset over the village, the fields golden with the promise of a bountiful harvest, Okonkwo knew that the future was bright. With the love of his people and his family by his side, he was ready to face whatever challenges came next, for he knew that together, they could overcome anything. As the harvest festival drew near, Okonkwo found himself reflecting more deeply on the legacy he was crafting for Umuahia. His past, once a shadowy backdrop to his leadership, had transformed into a wellspring of lessons that shaped his decisions and actions. He had learned that leadership was not about imposing one's will but about listening, adapting, and foreseeing the needs of the people and the land. On the eve of the festival, Okonkwo sat under the sprawling branches of the Iroko tree, his gaze sweeping over the village. Lanterns hung from the trees and houses, casting a warm glow over the faces of the villagers as they prepared for the celebrations. The air was filled with the scent of roasting meats and fresh palm wine, and the sound of drums and laughter provided a vibrant soundtrack to the evening's anticipation. Amidst this bustling activity, Chike approached Okonkwo with a concerned expression. "There's been word from the northern borders," he informed quietly, not wanting to disturb the festive atmosphere. "Some of our traders were stopped by a group from the hill tribe. They were allowed to pass eventually, but the encounter was tense." Okonkwo's expression hardened slightly. The hill tribe had always been somewhat unpredictable, their allegiance shifting with the winds of fortune. "We'll need to address this, but not tonight," he decided, his voice firm. "Tonight, we celebrate our harvest and our community. Tomorrow, we will send envoys to speak with them." Chike nodded, trusting Okonkwo's judgment. As he walked away to join the others, Okonkwo felt a momentary weight of solitude. Leadership often meant standing slightly apart, the weight of the community's well-being a constant companion. The festival itself was a grand affair. The entire village came together, a tapestry of old and young, traditional and modern. Okonkwo watched as Chinedu participated in the traditional dances, his young face alight with joy and pride. Beside him, Ekutisi shared a smile with Okonkwo, a silent communication of shared love and purpose. As the night progressed, Okonkwo took his place in the circle of elders and addressed the gathered crowd. His voice carried over the crowd, strong and clear. "Tonight, we celebrate not just the bounty of our harvest but the strength of our bonds," he began. "Each year, we grow stronger, not just in our fields, but in our hearts and our commitments to each other." The crowd responded with cheers, their faces alight with firelight and fellowship. As the celebrations continued into the night, Okonkwo felt a profound connection to his ancestors, those who had founded Umuahia and those who had guided him through the darkness of his own past. The following morning, with the remnants of the festival still lingering in the air, Okonkwo and his council convened a meeting to discuss the incident with the hill tribe. They decided to send a delegation of peace, offering gifts of yam and palm oil as symbols of goodwill. The delegation returned days later with hopeful news. The hill tribe had accepted the gifts and expressed an interest in establishing regular trade with Umuahia. The potential for conflict had been transformed into an opportunity for alliance, and Okonkwo felt a surge of relief. This success bolstered Umuahia standing further, and as months turned into years, the village's influence grew. Trade routes expanded, alliances strengthened, and the village prospered under Okonkwo's steady leadership. His once tumultuous life had settled into a rhythm of peace and progressive governance. However, peace is often a fragile state, contingent on the balance of external pressures and internal harmony. As Umuahia grew, so did the envy and desires of neighboring regions. Rumors began to spread of a coalition forming to challenge Umuahia's ascendancy, spurred by those who missed the old days of strife and division. Okonkwo, ever vigilant, prepared for the possibility of conflict. But he also pursued a parallel path of diplomacy, reaching out to other tribes and communities, sharing the benefits of peace and cooperation. He knew that the true strength of Umuahia lay not in its ability to wage war but in its capacity to foster peace and prosperity. His life had become a testament to the power of transformation, from a man feared for his prowess in battle to a leader revered for his wisdom and dedication to his people. And as he sat with Ekutesi and Chinidu, watching the sunset over Umuahia, he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family, as a community, as a part of a world they were helping to shape for the better. As Umuahia prospered under Okonkwo's leadership, an unexpected revelation threatened to undermine the delicate peace he had worked so hard to maintain within his own family. It happened during a rare quiet moment, as the dry season beckoned with cooler nights that drew people closer around the hearths. Okonkwo was in his compound, enjoying the rare pleasure of solitude, when his brother, Uzodinma, visited him. Uzodinma, a quieter man with less ambition than Okonkwo, appeared unusually troubled as he approached. The setting sun cast long shadows across the yard, mirroring the dark lines of worry etched deep in Uzodinma's face. "Brother," Uzodinma began hesitantly, his voice strained, "there is a matter that weighs heavily on my heart. It is a difficult thing I come to discuss." Okonkwo, sensing the seriousness of the issue, gestured for his brother to sit beside him on the low wooden bench near the fire. Uzodinma paused, collecting his thoughts before he spoke again. "It is about my wife, Adogo. You know we have been married many seasons, and she has borne me no children. There has been talk, rumors, and finally, a confession." Okonkwo's heart sank as he listened, an uneasy feeling growing within him. "What confession?" he asked, though a part of him feared the answer. Uzodinma's voice was barely a whisper when he replied, "Adogo confessed that many years ago, before we were married, she had a brief affair. It was a mistake she deeply regrets. The man, she did not know his name, it was a brief encounter during the festival of the New Yam. She described him, and Okonkwo, the man she described sounds much like you." The air seemed to thicken around Okonkwo, his mind racing back through the years to the countless festivals he had attended, the faces blurring into one another. He had changed since those reckless days of his youth, but the shadows of his past actions seemed to loom larger with each passing moment. "Uzodinma, Okonkwo struggled to find the words. The possibility that he had unknowingly wronged his own brother in such a profound way was a bitter pill to swallow. The silence that followed was suffocating. Uzodinma looked away, his expression torn between anger and sorrow. "I needed to know, brother," he finally said. "For the peace of my own heart. I needed to confront this ghost that has haunted my marriage." Okonkwo felt a profound sense of shame. His past, once a source of whispered legend within the village, now threatened the fabric of his own family. "I am sorry," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "If I had known, I would have." "Done what, Okonkwo?" Uzodinma interrupted, his voice rising with a mix of anger and desperation. "Can you undo what has been done?" The question hung between them, stark and unanswerable. Okonkwo knew there was no remedy for the hurt he might have caused, no way to change the past. Yet, he also knew he owed it to his brother to try to make amends, however insufficient they might be. "I cannot change the past, but I am here now, brother. Tell me how I can help, how I can make this right," Okonkwo said, his voice steady, his resolve clear despite the turmoil inside him. Uzodinma looked at his brother, the anger slowly fading from his eyes, replaced by a weary sadness. "I do not know, Okonkwo. I need time to think, to understand how we move forward from here." Okonkwo nodded, respecting his brother's need for space and time to heal. "Take all the time you need. I am here when you are ready." Uzodinma stood, the weight of their conversation bowing his shoulders. As he walked away, Okonkwo watched him go, feeling the full weight of his past choices bearing down on him. This was a wound that would not easily heal, and the path to reconciliation would be long and fraught. In the days that followed, Okonkwo pondered the fragile nature of peace and the intricate webs of consequence woven by seemingly isolated actions. His own redemption felt more distant now, a reminder that some scars might never fully. Okonkwo, a young man, one of the volunteers who had shown great interest in the community projects. "Chief," Obi began, a slight hesitancy in his voice, there is something I wish to discuss with you. It's about my mother, Chike. She has been feeling unwell lately, but she refuses to go to the clinic. She is afraid that her illness might be serious. Okonkwo listened intently, his expression turning thoughtful. Thank you for telling me, Obi. I will visit your mother this evening. Sometimes, a familiar face can provide the comfort needed to accept help. That evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the village, Okonkwo made his way to Chike's home. He found her sitting outside her hut, a thin shawl wrapped around her shoulders against the evening chill. Her face lit up with a smile as she saw Okonkwo approach, but her eyes betrayed a weariness that concerned him. As the new school flourished, becoming a cornerstone of Umuahia's cultural and educational renewal, Okonkwo found himself at the heart of a rejuvenated village. The sense of unity that the school's opening had inspired seemed to radiate out, influencing every aspect of village life. However, the peace was soon tested by an unexpected turn of events that would once again challenge Okonkwo and his commitment to his community. A few months after the school's inauguration, during the height of the rainy season, a mysterious illness began to sweep through Umuahia. It started subtly, with a few elders and children falling ill with fevers and chills. As the days passed, the sickness spread, growing more severe and widespread. The village healer, a wise old woman named Neka, was soon overwhelmed, her heart a constant flurry of activity. Okonkwo, ever vigilant, was quick to respond. He organized the villagers, setting up a makeshift infirmary in the community hall and arranging for supplies of fresh water and herbs. Yet, despite their efforts, the illness continued to spread, its cause unknown, leaving a trail of fear and uncertainty in its wake. Amid this crisis, a figure from Okonkwo's past reappeared, a doctor named Emeka, whom Okonkwo had met many years ago during his travels. Dr. Emeka, now a respected epidemiologist, arrived in Umuahia at Okonkwo's urgent request, bringing with him a team of medical professionals. The reunion between Okonkwo and Emeka was a stark reminder of the paths Okonkwo could have taken, the lives he might have touched in other ways. Emeka, with his calm efficiency and deep knowledge, quickly took charge of the situation, working with Neka to identify the illness and its source. Through their combined efforts, they discovered that the illness was waterborne, traced back to a contaminated well on the outskirts of the village. The revelation was a shock to the community, which had relied on the well for generations. With the cause identified, Emeka and his team worked tirelessly to treat the affected villagers and to purify the water supply. Okonkwo supported every step, his presence a comforting constant for his people. Under Emeka's guidance, the village slowly began to heal, the wave of sickness ebbing as swiftly as it had arrived. The crisis brought the community closer together, their shared vulnerability and mutual support strengthening the bonds that Okonkwo and Uzodinma had worked so hard to build. The school became a rallying point, a place where the children learned not only academic subjects but also lessons in hygiene and community health that Emeka introduced into the curriculum. As Umuahia recovered, Okonkwo found himself reflecting on the precarious balance of life, how closely joy and sorrow were intertwined, and how the actions of a single individual could tip the scales for an entire community. He saw in Emeka a model of the man he might have become had his path not been so fraught with personal failings and eventual redemption. One evening, as Okonkwo and Emeka sat watching the sunset, their conversation turned to the future. "You have built something remarkable here, Okonkwo," Emeka said, his voice tinged with admiration. "This village is a testament to your leadership and your people's resilience." Okonkwo nodded, the weight of Emeka's words settling around him like a cloak. "It has not been without its challenges," he admitted. "But I believe that each trial has been a lesson, a stepping stone to something greater." "And what do you see for the future of Umuahia?" Emeka asked, genuinely curious. "I see a community that continues to grow, not just in size but in wisdom," Okonkwo replied. "A place where the mistakes of the past are not just remembered, but are used to teach future generations. Where people like you, Emeka, come not just to heal, but to inspire." Emeka smiled, the respect mutual. "And I see a leader who has truly found his place in the world, not by seeking power, but by serving his people." The conversation lingered into the night, two old friends sharing their hopes and dreams for a village that had endured much but had emerged stronger each time. In the days that followed, Okonkwo set about implementing new public health measures in Umuahia, using the crisis as an impetus to improve sanitation and healthcare. With Emeka's help, he established a small clinic near the school, ensuring that Umuahia would be better prepared for any future health challenges. As the clinic opened, the villagers gathered, their faces bright with hope and gratitude. They saw in Okonkwo not just a chief or a brother, but a guardian of their well-being, a leader who had truly earned his place through the depth of his commitment to Umuahia. Under the broad branches of the Iroko tree, with children playing in the background and elders sharing stories, Okonkwo felt a profound connection to the cycles of life and legacy. He knew that the road ahead would still hold surprises and challenges, but he also knew that Umuahia was ready to face them, united and strong. As the days turned into months, Umuahia continued to thrive under Okonkwo's mindful leadership, the village not just recovering but growing stronger and more cohesive than ever before. The new clinic, nestled near the school, became a symbol of the community's resilience and forward-thinking attitude. It wasn't just a place for treating ailments but also a center for community health education, focusing on preventative measures to keep the village healthy. Okonkwo's thoughts often turned towards the future, considering not just the physical health of his people, but their spiritual and emotional well-being. He initiated the creation of a community center, a space where villagers could gather to share stories, celebrate successes, and support one another in times of grief. This idea was warmly received, the project quickly becoming a collective endeavor fueled by the enthusiasm and voluntary contributions of the villagers. One afternoon, as the community center was nearing completion, Okonkwo visited the site to inspect the progress. The workers, a mix of young men and women from the village, were busily engaged in their tasks, their laughter and chatter adding a lively buzz to the atmosphere. Watching them work so harmoniously, Okonkwo felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment, a stark contrast to the isolation and turmoil of his earlier years. As he walked through the construction site, Okonkwo was approached by a young man, Obi, one of the volunteers who had shown great interest in the community projects. "Chief," Obi began, a slight hesitancy in his voice, "there is something I wish to discuss with you. It's about my mother, Chike. She has been feeling unwell lately, but she refuses to go to the clinic. She is afraid that her illness might be serious." Okonkwo listened intently, his expression turning thoughtful. "Thank you for telling me, Obi. I will visit your mother this evening." Sometimes, a familiar face can provide the comfort needed to accept help. That evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the village, Okonkwo made his way to Chike's home. He found her sitting outside her hut, a thin shawl wrapped around her shoulders against the evening chill. Her face lit up with a smile as she saw Okonkwo approach, but her eyes betrayed a weariness that concerned him. "Chike, how are you feeling?" Okonkwo asked as he sat beside her on the low wooden bench. "I have been better, Okonkwo," she replied, her voice weak but warm. "I am just tired, that's all. The years are catching up with me." Okonkwo knew there might be more to her condition than age alone. "Chike, you know we have excellent facilities and skilled people at the clinic. Please, let us help you. There is no need to face this alone." Chike sighed, looking away towards the darkening horizon. "I am afraid, Okonkwo. What if it is something bad? I do not want to burden my son or the village." Okonkwo reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Chike, it is no burden. We are a community, we lift each other up. Let us at least find out what is wrong. Whatever it is, we will face it together." After a moment of silence, Chike nodded slowly, finally agreeing to visit the clinic the following day. Okonkwo felt a small victory, not just in persuading her to seek help, but in reinforcing the bonds of trust and mutual care within the village. The next morning, accompanied by Okonkwo and Obi, Chike visited the clinic. After a thorough examination by the clinic's nurse practitioner, who had been trained under Emeka's guidance, it was determined that Chike was suffering from a treatable form of anemia, exacerbated by her reluctance to seek early medical advice. With the appropriate treatment plan in place, Chike's health began to improve, her strength returning gradually. The relief in Obi's eyes spoke volumes, and his gratitude towards Okonkwo further cemented the elder's reputation as a true leader of the community. As Umuahia celebrated the completion of the community center with a vibrant ceremony, Okonkwo reflected on the events of the past months. Each challenge, each fear faced by his people, had strengthened their collective spirit and deepened their reliance on one another. He looked around at the faces of his villagers, their features illuminated by the flickering light of the ceremonial fire, and he saw not just individuals, but a single, interconnected community, pulsing with life and united in their pursuit of a better tomorrow. With this renewed spirit and the continued development of community projects, Okonkwo knew that Umuahia was on a path of sustainable growth and deep, meaningful resilience. He felt a profound connection to his ancestors, understanding now that his legacy would be defined by the strength and health of the community he served. In this moment, under the stars, surrounded by the laughter and joy of his people, Okonkwo felt truly at peace, his heart as full as the moon above. As the festivities of the community center opening drew to a close, Okonkwo stood apart for a moment, observing the joy and camaraderie among his people. He felt a deep satisfaction that Umuahia was not just surviving but thriving under his leadership. The thoughts of his earlier transgressions still lingered in his mind, but they were now tempered by the acknowledgement of the positive changes he had instigated. The next day brought new responsibilities and new opportunities. Okonkwo, ever mindful of the future, decided to convene a meeting with the village elders and other key community leaders. Their task was to outline a 5-year plan for Umuahia, focusing on education, healthcare, infrastructure, and economic development. Okonkwo wanted to ensure that the foundations they laid now would support the continued growth and well-being of the village for generations to come. During the meeting, Okonkwo presented his vision for the village, which included expanding the clinic into a larger health center, improving the school curriculum to include vocational training, and building better roads to connect Umuahia with neighboring communities to facilitate trade and communication. The elders listened intently, nodding their approval and occasionally offering suggestions. The meeting was a collaborative effort, with every participant bringing their own insights and experiences to the table, enriching the discussion and helping to shape a comprehensive plan that addressed various aspects of village life. As they outlined the steps needed to achieve these goals, Okonkwo felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was particularly passionate about the educational initiatives, knowing that the true strength of Umuahia lay in its educated and capable youth. With the 5-year plan outlined, Okonkwo and the council began the hard work of implementation. The first project was the expansion of the clinic. Okonkwo reached out to Emeka, asking for his advice and assistance in designing a facility that could meet the growing healthcare needs of Umuahia and surrounding areas. Emeka, impressed by the village's commitment to health and wellness, agreed to help and even facilitated partnerships with medical NGOs that could provide funding and resources. As the clinic expansion got underway, Okonkwo turned his attention to the school. He wanted to introduce a curriculum that not only focused on academic excellence but also on practical skills like agriculture, carpentry, and textiles, which could help students start their own businesses or improve their farming techniques, contributing directly to the village's economy. The road construction project was more challenging due to the need for significant manual labor and materials, but Okonkwo was undeterred. He organized work teams from among the villagers, providing employment and a sense of ownership over the project. To everyone's surprise, the road project not only connected Umuahia with neighboring villages but also became a catalyst for several inter-village initiatives, including a cooperative market and a regional cultural festival. Throughout these developments, Okonkwo remained a central figure, his leadership style evolving from one of command and control to one of empowerment and collaboration. He encouraged participation from all sectors of the community, believing that everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, had valuable contributions to make. 2 years into the 5-year plan, Umuahia was a beacon of progress. The health center was now operational, offering modern medical care to an expanded patient base. The school boasted a higher enrollment rate than ever before, with students excelling in both academics and vocational skills. The roads had enhanced mobility and economic activity, bringing prosperity and new opportunities to the village. As Okonkwo walked through the village one evening, he paused to watch a group of children playing near the community center. Their laughter and shouts of joy were music to his ears, a sound that filled him with hope and determination. He knew that the road ahead might still hold challenges, but he also knew that Umuahia was stronger than ever, ready to face the future with confidence and unity. Under the stars of the African sky, Okonkwo felt the ancestors' approval of his efforts, a silent acknowledgement that he had indeed turned his once troubled legacy into one of lasting positive impact. Umuahia was his home, his legacy, and his life's work, a thriving testament to the power of redemption and the unyielding strength of the human spirit. As Umuahia basked in the prosperity brought about by Okonkwo's leadership and the community's hard work, a shadow loomed on the horizon. Chike, once a steadfast supporter and like a brother to Okonkwo, returned from a prolonged visit to neighboring regions where he had gone to learn new agricultural techniques and explore further trade partnerships. However, his return was not the joyous occasion many had anticipated. Chike had changed. His time away had exposed him to different communities, where power dynamics and political intrigue played a significant role in leadership. Influenced by what he had witnessed, Chike's ambitions grew, and he harbored a new vision for Umuahia, one that centered around his leadership rather than Okonkwo's. Upon his return, Chike began quietly sowing seeds of doubt among the villagers about Okonkwo's past misdeeds, reminding them of the reckless youth Okonkwo had once been. "How can we trust a man who once lived so carelessly?" Chike would whisper during gatherings, casting a dark cloud over Okonkwo's numerous achievements and reformed character. Okonkwo, initially unaware of Chike's growing dissent, continued to focus on the community projects. It wasn't until he overheard a group of villagers discussing Chike's comments that he realized the extent of Chike's betrayal. Stung by the betrayal of someone he had treated as family, Okonkwo confronted Chike, seeking to understand his motives. "Chike, my brother, why do you turn against me?" Okonkwo asked, his voice heavy with sorrow and disbelief. "Have I not shown through my actions that I am no longer the man I once was? Why do you seek to bring up a past I cannot change but have strive to atone for?" Chike, hardened by his ambitions, met Okonkwo's sincerity with a cold pragmatism. "Okonkwo, Umuahia needs a leader who looks forward, not one who is constantly making amends for his past. It's time for new leadership, for fresh ideas. The community respects you, but respect is not enough to drive us forward." This confrontation marked the beginning of a visible rift within Umuahia. The community was divided, with some siding with Chike, attracted by his promises of innovation and expansion, while others remained fiercely loyal to Okonkwo, whose leadership had brought them peace and prosperity. The division came to a head during the annual Harvest Festival, a time when the community traditionally came together to celebrate their collective success. Instead of unity, there was palpable tension, with villagers taking sides. Okonkwo, in a bid to restore harmony, proposed a public debate between himself and Chike, hoping to resolve their differences openly and allow the villagers to make their own informed decisions about their leadership. During the debate, Chike presented his vision for a more aggressive expansion of trade routes and a reorganization of the village's resources, criticizing Okonkwo's cautious approach as outdated. Okonkwo, on the other hand, emphasized stability, community cohesion, and the ethical use of resources, questioning the sustainability of Chike's ambitious plans. The community listened intently, torn between the promise of new prospect and the comfort of tested leadership. After the debate, the elders of Umuahia called for a vote, a democratic way to resolve the leadership crisis. The village was tense in anticipation, each member casting their vote into the ancient urn that had served Umuahia for generations. When the votes were counted, the result was a narrow victory for Okonkwo. The community had decided, albeit with a slim margin, to stick with the leader who had guided them through so much. Chike, defeated but not dissuaded, accepted the decision with a stiff nod, but his eyes burned with unresolved ambition. Okonkwo, relieved yet saddened by the division Chike had caused, extended an olive branch, inviting Chike to work together to merge the best of their ideas for the benefit of Umuahia. Chike, recognizing that his future in Umuahia would depend on his ability to collaborate, agreed reluctantly. The resolution was uneasy, but it marked a new chapter for Umuahia, one that would require reconciliation and a careful balancing of innovation with tradition. Okonkwo realized that leadership was not just about maintaining order but also about navigating the ambitions and desires of those he led. He was determined to integrate Chike's ideas where they benefited the community, all the while maintaining the unity and spirit of Umuahia that had made it strong. As the dust settled, Okonkwo looked out over the village, knowing that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but believing deeply in the resilience and collective spirit of Umuahia, ready to face the future, whatever it might bring. As the days turned into weeks, Okonkwo took proactive steps to heal the divisions within Umuahia. Recognizing the potential for lingering resentment, he organized a series of community dialogues. These forums were designed to give everyone in the village a voice, allowing them to express concerns, hopes, and visions for the future in a constructive environment. Okonkwo believed that transparency and open communication were crucial for mending the rifts and moving forward as a unified community. Meanwhile, Chike, though initially reluctant, began to see the wisdom in Okonkwo's approach. The narrow margin by which he had lost the vote revealed a significant portion of the village was in favor of change and innovation, but perhaps not at the cost of stability and cohesion that Okonkwo's leadership provided. Chike started to participate more actively in the dialogues, engaging with the villagers not as a dissenting voice but as a contributing member of the community seeking common ground. During one particularly spirited community meeting, a young farmer named Chike raised a poignant question that captured the essence of Umuahia's crossroads: how do we balance our need for progress with the preservation of our community soul? This question sparked a lively debate that lasted several hours, encapsulating the central challenge facing Umuahia. Okonkwo listened intently to the discussions, realizing that the path forward lay not in between progress and tradition but in weaving them together. Inspired by this, he proposed the establishment of a new council, a development advisory board, consisting of members from various sectors of the village, including some of Chike's key supporters. This board would oversee the integration of innovative projects with the traditional values and practices of Umuahia, ensuring that development was both sustainable and respectful of the community's heritage. Chike was nominated to lead this board, a role he accepted with a sense of purpose and responsibility. His focus shifted from a desire to replace Okonkwo to leveraging his own ideas and energy to complement Okonkwo's vision. Together, they outlined the first major initiative under this new framework, a sustainable agriculture program designed to increase crop yields while preserving the land for future generations. This program included the introduction of new farming techniques that Chike had learned during his travels, combined with the traditional practices that had sustained Umuahia for decades. The initiative was met with enthusiastic approval from the villagers, who were eager to see how the blending of old and new could enhance their livelihoods. As the agriculture program began to bear fruit, literally and metaphorically, the village saw a renaissance of sorts. The success of the initiative served as a tangible example of how collaboration and mutual respect could lead to tangible benefits. The community's faith in Okonkwo's leadership was strengthened, and Chike found a new respect among his fellow villagers not as a rival to Okonkwo, but as a visionary in his own right. The renewed partnership between Okonkwo and Chike sparked a series of successful projects. From the expansion of the local market to include a new trade section that featured innovative goods and services, to the enhancement of the educational program to include more vocational training tailored to evolving job markets, Umuahia thrived. Each success was a testament to what could be achieved when a community worked together toward a common goal. As years passed, the scars of the past leadership struggle began to fade, replaced by a shared pride in what Umuahia had become, a vibrant, progressive, yet deeply connected community. Okonkwo often reflected on the journey, from the depth of his own personal redemption to the heights of leading such a dynamic community. He knew that his legacy, once tarnished by his past actions, would now be remembered for the unity and prosperity he had helped foster. One evening, as Okonkwo walked through the village, he stopped by the community center, which had become a bustling hub of activity and laughter. Watching children and adults of all ages coming together, sharing stories and dreams under the roof of a structure that symbolized Umuahia's unity, he felt a profound sense of peace. Here, in the laughter of the children and the respectful nods of the elders, lay the true strength of Umuahia, the spirit of its people, forever striving, forever growing together. Despite the prosperity and unity that now characterized Umuahia, Okonkwo faced a personal challenge that seemed to grow more daunting by the day. As a leader, he had overcome many obstacles and mended many bridges, but his personal life remained a realm of unresolved quest. With age creeping upon him, Okonkwo felt a growing desire to find a companion who would stand by his side not just as a wife, but as a partner in leadership, someone who could help him guide Umuahia into the future. Okonkwo's reputation as a reformed man and a wise leader was well established within Umuahia and beyond, but his colorful past, particularly his history with women, proved to be a stumbling block in his search for a life partner. Many of the eligible women in the village and neighboring communities were hesitant to enter into marriage with a man who had fathered numerous children with various women. The title Mother of the Nation, as the community had begun to refer to his prospective wife, was one that carried not just honor but a heavy burden, and many feared the complexities involved. Despite these challenges, Okonkwo was undeterred. He believed that there was someone who would understand his past, see the man he had become, and share his vision for the future. His search took him beyond the familiar boundaries of Umuahia, to neighboring villages and tribal gatherings, where he met many wise and bold women, each with her own views on leadership and partnership. During one of these gatherings, Okonkwo met Ngozi, a well-respected educator from a distant village known for her progressive views on women's roles in society. Ngozi was a widow who had successfully led her late husband's trading company after his death, growing it into a prosperous enterprise. She was well-versed in the intricacies of leadership and was not intimidated by the challenges that came with high status. Ngozi and Okonkwo initially connected over discussions of trade and education, but their conversations soon delved deeper into visions of community development and governance. Okonkwo was struck by Ngozi's intelligence and her compassionate yet practical approach to leadership. He saw in her a potential partner who could truly stand with him in leading Umuahia. However, when Okonkwo broached the subject of marriage, Ngozi was hesitant. She admired Okonkwo's dedication to his people and shared many of his values, but she was wary of the social implications of becoming Umuahia's queen and the stepmother to his many children. The reluctance stemmed not from a lack of affection for Okonkwo but rather from her understanding of the complexities such a role would entail. Determined to show his commitment and address her concerns, Okonkwo invited Ngozi to spend time in Umuahia, to see firsthand the community he led and the family dynamics with his children. Ngozi accepted, intrigued by the possibility of making a real change in a community that had already shown significant progress and resilience. During her visit, Ngozi was welcomed warmly by the villagers, who were eager to see their leader find happiness and stability. She spent time with Okonkwo's children, who, aware of their father's hopes, went out of their way to show their best qualities. To Ngozi's surprise, she found herself charmed not only by the children but by the community as a whole. Their respect for Okonkwo, their openness in embracing her, and the palpable sense of unity left a profound impression on her. Leadership had impacted their lives for the better. These conversations gave her a deeper understanding of what her role could mean beyond being a partner to Okonkwo. She saw the potential for real impact on the community, particularly in empowering women and children. After weeks of contemplation, Ngozi decided to accept Okonkwo's proposal, moved not only by her feelings for him but by the opportunity to contribute to a community that was clearly on the brink of something even greater. They announced their engagement at the next Harvest Festival, a celebration that doubled as a reaffirmation of Umuahia's values of growth, unity, and resilience. The news was met with jubilation throughout Umuahia, as the villagers looked forward to a new chapter under the joint leadership of Okonkwo and Ngozi. Together, they planned to continue the work that Okonkwo had begun, expanding it to include more programs for women's empowerment, education, and economic development. As they stood together, hand in hand, under the vast African sky, it was clear to everyone that Umuahia was not just gaining a new queen, but a powerful advocate for their continuing evolution as a community. As the preparations for Okonkwo and Ngozi's wedding began, excitement rippled through Umuahia. However, this excitement was soon met with a sudden challenge that neither Okonkwo nor Ngozi had anticipated. Ngozi's parents, who lived in a distant village renowned for its strict adherence to traditional values and skepticism of outsiders, had not yet given their blessing to the union. When they heard of their daughter's engagement, they were not pleased. Ngozi's parents held conservative views about marriage, particularly concerning lineage and the social implications of their daughter marrying a man known for his complex past. They were concerned about Okonkwo's history with other women and the blended family Ngozi would become a part of. They feared that their daughter would be overshadowed by the lingering tales of Okonkwo's earlier life, potentially affecting their family's reputation. Upon hearing their concerns, Ngozi decided to visit her parents to discuss her decision and reassure them of her happiness and confidence in her choice. Okonkwo, respecting Ngozi's wishes and understanding the importance of family consent in their culture, stayed behind in Umuahia but awaited anxiously for news. Ngozi traveled to her parents' village, where she was met with a cool reception. Her parents were not hostile, but their disapproval was evident. They expressed their doubts about Okonkwo's suitability as a husband, focusing on his past rather than the man he had become and the leader he was now. Ngozi listened patiently to her parents, acknowledging their concerns. However, she also spoke passionately about the changes she had witnessed in Okonkwo, the strength of his character, and his commitment to the well-being of Umuahia. She shared her vision for the role she would play alongside him, emphasizing how their partnership could bring about significant positive changes not just for Umuahia but for surrounding communities, including her own. To address their concerns further, Ngozi invited her parents to visit Umuahia to see the community's progress for themselves and to meet Okonkwo in person. Reluctantly, they agreed, their love for their daughter and their respect for her judgment prompting them to reconsider their stance. When Ngozi returned to Umuahia with her parents, Okonkwo welcomed them with the utmost respect and hospitality. He was well aware of the importance of first impressions and went out of his way to show them the community he and Ngozi would be leading together. They were introduced to various community leaders, visited local projects that had transformed the lives of many villagers, and attended a gathering where they could hear firsthand from the people about the impact of Okonkwo's leadership. Ngozi's parents were particularly moved by a presentation at the school, where children from diverse backgrounds demonstrated their learning. They saw the respect the community held for Okonkwo and the genuine affection between him and the villagers. They also had private conversations with some of the elders and were reassured by their veneration for Okonkwo and their enthusiastic support for his union with Ngozi. Throughout the visit, Ngozi's parents' reservations slowly began to wane, replaced by a growing recognition of the sincerity of Okonkwo's intentions and his dedication to his community. They saw how their daughter could indeed make a significant impact in Umuahia and how her leadership could extend the community's prosperity even further. Finally, after several days of discussions and observations, Ngozi's parents gave their blessing to the marriage. They realized that their initial concerns, though grounded in love and protection, were based on an incomplete understanding of Okonkwo's character and the dynamic community he led. With their approval secured, the wedding plans resumed with even greater enthusiasm. The marriage was no longer just a union between two individuals but a celebration of new beginnings and reconciled differences, embodying the unity that Okonkwo and Ngozi hoped to foster for all of Umuahia. The community, uplifted by the resolution of this challenge, prepared for a wedding that promised to be a significant milestone, marking a new chapter in the life of Umuahia under the joint leadership of Okonkwo and Ngozi. With the blessings of Ngozi's parents secured and their union officially celebrated in a vibrant and joyful wedding, Okonkwo and Ngozi set forth on their shared vision for Umuahia. The newlyweds were not only united in marriage but also in their commitment to steering Umuahia toward unprecedented prosperity and unity. Inspired by their partnership and the harmonious blending of their lives, Okonkwo proposed an ambitious new project that would not only cement his legacy but also strengthen the communal bonds of Umuahia. He envisioned building a large family estate that would serve as a home for all his children, a place where the extended family could live together, learn from each other, and support one another in a communal setting. This estate would be an embodiment of unity and a physical representation of the new Umuahia under his and Ngozi's leadership. Ngozi, ever supportive and insightful, expanded on Okonkwo's idea, suggesting that the estate could also include communal farming projects, educational workshops, and shared spaces for arts and culture. It would be a microcosm of Umuahia, promoting the values of cooperation, sustainability, and cultural enrichment. Together, they presented the plan to the community, explaining how this estate would not only unite Okonkwo's family but also serve as a model for communal living and cooperative enterprise within Umuahia. The community embraced the idea enthusiastically, eager to participate in and benefit from the project. Construction began, with local artisans and builders employed to create a sprawling but environmentally sustainable estate that featured modern amenities while still respecting traditional architectural styles. As the estate took shape, Okonkwo reached out to all his children, explaining his vision of a united family living and working together to create a legacy for generations to come. The response from his children was overwhelmingly positive. Many were excited by the prospect of being part of a grand communal living experiment and contributing to their father's vision of a new Umuahia. They began to move in as soon as their homes were completed, bringing with them their own families and stories, adding to the tapestry of the estate's life. Ngozi took an active role in helping everyone settle in, organizing community meetings, and facilitating discussions on how best to manage the communal aspects of the estate. She introduced initiatives like a communal kitchen where families could take turns cooking for the community and share meals, a library filled with books on various subjects to encourage continuous learning, and a community garden where children and adults alike could learn about sustainable farming practices. The estate quickly became a bustling hub of activity, with children playing in the gardens, adults collaborating on various projects, and the elderly sharing stories and wisdom with the younger generations. It was a place of joy, laughter, and constant learning, reflecting the diverse and dynamic nature of Okonkwo's extended family. However, integrating such a diverse group into a cohesive living arrangement was not without its challenges. Differences in opinion on how things should be run and occasional conflict over shared resources tested the community's resolve. Okonkwo and Ngozi, with their complementary strengths, worked tirelessly to mediate conflict and foster a spirit of compromise and understanding. As they navigated these challenges, Okonkwo and Ngozi found that each obstacle overcome strengthened the bonds within the estate, turning it from a collection of individuals into a true family. This unity began to reflect outward, influencing the broader Umuahia community, which saw the estate not just as Okonkwo's home but as a beacon of communal harmony and cooperative living. The success of the estate sparked interest from other communities and leaders who came to see how Okonkwo's vision of a united family under one roof was contributing to the social and economic strength of Umuahia. Okonkwo welcomed these visitors, sharing insights and lessons learned, hoping to inspire similar initiatives elsewhere. Under Okonkwo and Ngozi's leadership, Umuahia continued to flourish, its influence growing not only through the prosperity of its trade and agriculture but also through its innovative approaches to community building and social welfare. The family estate, a once ambitious dream, had become a cornerstone of this new era, symbolizing the possibility of unity and collective prosperity in a world that often valued individualism and competition. As Okonkwo looked out over the estate, bustling with the energy and aspirations of his family, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment and hope for the future. He knew there would be more challenges ahead, but he was confident that together, as a family and a community, they could face anything and continue to thrive. The family estate, thriving and vibrant, soon became more than just a residence. It was a model of community development and social harmony. Okonkwo and Ngozi's vision had materialized into a living, breathing testament to what a united community could achieve. As the months passed, the estate's success with its integrated approach to living encouraged similar developments in nearby villages, spreading the concept of communal living across the region. Okonkwo, with Ngozi by his side, now found himself at the helm of a movement that transcended the boundaries of Umuahia. Their model of cooperative living and shared responsibility was hailed as an innovative solution to the social isolation and fragmented family structures seen in many modern communities. Okonkwo was invited to speak at various regional forums and workshops, where he shared his insights and the tangible benefits that the estate had brought to Umuahia. Back in the village, as the estate flourished, so did the sense of responsibility among Okonkwo's children. They had found a new respect for their father's ideals and a deep appreciation for Ngozi's guidance and leadership. Each child found their niche within the community, contributing in ways that felt most fulfilling to them. Some took to farming, applying sustainable methods to cultivate the land, others managed various communal enterprises, from craft workshops to a small marketplace that catered to the needs of the estate and its visitors. However, as the estate grew, so did the logistical challenges. Managing the day-to-day operations of such a bustling community required careful coordination and a lot of hard work. Ngozi, ever the organizer and mediator, implemented a council system where representatives from each family unit within the estate met weekly to discuss community issues, plan events, and resolve any conflicts that arose. This system not only kept the community running smoothly but also fostered a democratic spirit and sense of ownership among all residents. The success of this system piqued the interest of local government officials, who saw potential in applying similar models to other regions. They proposed a partnership with Okonkwo and Ngozi to develop a pilot program that could serve as a blueprint for social development projects across the country. Okonkwo and Ngozi welcomed this opportunity, seeing it as a chance to amplify the impact of their work and inspire change on a larger scale. Meanwhile, life on the estate continued to evolve. The children, many of whom had grown into young adults, began to express desires to explore the world beyond Umuahia. Okonkwo and Ngozi supported these aspirations, understanding that the true test of their educational efforts would be how well their children adapted and thrived outside the community. As these young adults ventured out, they carried with them the principles and values instilled by their upbringing. They became ambassadors of Umuahia's model, spreading the word about their unique community and the benefits of communal living. Their success in the outside world further validated Okonkwo and Ngozi's vision, proving that the principles of cooperation, respect, and shared responsibility were not only applicable within Umuahia but resonated universally. Okonkwo often walked through the estate at dusk, observing the vibrant life around him, the children playing in the communal gardens, the adults gathered around fire pits discussing the day's events, the elderly sharing stories with youngsters under the starlit sky. These moments of simple, profound joy reinforced his conviction that the legacy he and Ngozi were building was one of lasting impact. One evening, as he stood watching a group of children engage in a spirited game, Okonkwo felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. It was Ngozi, her eyes reflecting the orange glow of the setting Sunday. "Look at what we've built together," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "Yes," Okonkwo replied, his voice thick with gratitude. "We dreamed of a community, but we've built a family, a legacy that will outlive us and continue to grow." Together, they turned back towards their home, knowing that each day added a new layer to their story, a story of redemption, love, and enduring community spirit, a story that was still unfolding. As the years rolled on, Okonkwo and Ngozi's family estate became a living legacy, a beacon that attracted visitors, scholars, and curious onlookers from distant lands. People came to study the way of life in Umuahia, seeking to understand how a community could thrive so harmoniously, and many returned to their homes inspired, determined to bring a piece of Umuahia spirit back with them. With age, Okonkwo and Ngozi grew closer, their bond deepened by shared experiences and their unwavering dedication to the people they had chosen to serve. They spent their days teaching and mentoring the next generation, instilling in them the principles of empathy, accountability, and the importance of serving others selflessly. Okonkwo's many children, once scattered and uncertain, were now leaders in their own right, carrying forward the values their father and stepmother had worked so hard to establish. One evening, as the sun dipped low and bathed the estate in a warm, golden glow, Okonkwo gathered his family and the community around him under the great Iroko tree. His voice, though softened by age, carried the same strength and conviction that had once made him the most formidable leader in the region. "Today, I look around, and I see that our vision has become a reality," Okonkwo began, his gaze sweeping over the faces of his family and community. "But I also see something more. I see each of you carrying a part of this legacy forward. I see that our journey has been not just about building a community, but about becoming better people, together." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "When I was younger, I believed that strength was measured in how much you could achieve on your own. I thought power was about control, about pushing forward without looking back. But life, with all its challenges, taught me otherwise. True strength is found in unity, in lifting one another up, in allowing yourself to be part of something greater than yourself." Ngozi nodded, stepping forward to speak. "Our story is proof that people can change, that mistakes do not have to define us forever. Each of us has a past, some part of it filled with mistakes or regrets. But what matters is what we do with the time we have left, how we turn those mistakes into lessons and use them to uplift others." The gathering was silent, absorbed in the words of their leaders. Okonkwo's children, especially those born of his early recklessness, felt a deep sense of gratitude. They saw now that their father's transformation was not only his personal redemption but had also paved the way for their own growth and the strength of their extended family. Okonkwo continued, his voice steady and filled with warmth, "Remember, family is not just those bound to us by blood. It is those who stand by us, those we choose to serve, and those who make our lives fuller and richer. Legacy is not built in isolation but through the love, trust, and unity we create with others." As the sun set, bathing the estate in twilight, the community remained gathered, talking and reflecting on Okonkwo's words. They were words that held the essence of Umuahia's journey, a reminder that even those who have made mistakes can find redemption through humility, love, and the pursuit of a greater purpose. In the days that followed, the estate continued to flourish, a testament to the values Okonkwo and Gozi had instilled in everyone. Their children and community carried forward their legacy, rooted in unity, compassion, and the understanding that true strength lies in lifting each other up, not in standing alone. The story of Okonkwo's life spread throughout the land, not as a tale of conquest or unyielding power but as a parable of transformation. It became a reminder that the greatest legacy one can leave is not in individual accomplishments but in the lives touched and uplifted by one's actions. And so, Umuahia thrived, a lasting symbol of what could be achieved when people chose unity over division, forgiveness over resentment, and compassion over pride. Moral lesson: the path to true greatness lies not in conquering others but in conquering one's own faults and working towards unity, compassion, and understanding. Mistakes and a troubled past do not have to define one's future. With humility, love, and commitment to a greater cause, one can create a legacy of redemption and hope that uplifts not just oneself, but the entire community.